All right, I'm recording again because...
And I think one could say that's what we're here to do.
Yep, well, it unrecorded for a minute, and now it's recording again. So I'm just going to let this go for like a hot minute. Well, actually, hold on, I'm going to pause. Guess who's back? Back again.
Erin.
Woohoo!
Oh my gosh. Wow. Listeners, if I could, I am blindsided. Erin went from like, all right, you ready? Okay, cool. Yeah, we've got this set up. Welcome back!
I didn't ask if you were ready or not, and this doesn't have to be our real intro, but I thought it would be
spike-
really funny.
The spike of energy. Wow.
Yeah, I've been dead for the last hour.
I wouldn't say dead. I'd say you're on the lower end of energy, but
Yep.
I love this.
I love this energy for us. Welcome back to the Fic List, everybody!
Oh my gosh.
Ah!
Season 4.
And in true fashion, a giant truck just drove by and the audio is shot.
Nothing has changed here at Fic List Studios.
Yeah, Fic List headquarters. Our audio is still middling quality at best.
Yep.
We are punchy.
Yeah.
Tired.
Agreed.
Queer.
Yeah. True.
All still true. Nothing has changed.
Yeah, nothing really has changed.
We are still the little harbingers of chaos that we were.
Agreed.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
It's been like 6 months.
That feels wild to me. It feels like both not long enough and be way too long.
Yeah, definitely. And we're here, and yeah, it's season 4, baby.
Season 4, Bibby.
Bibby. Season 4. How have you been, other than, tired?
I've been okay. It was it's been like a challenging year thus far, but not in like anything truly devastating. It's just a lot of big change has happened.
Yep.
And I'm trying to and you mentioned earlier something that I think is very true, that right now the world feels like it's coming back to that pre-COVID pace that I dislike immensely. Like, yep. I realized because of the pandemic just how strung out and like just ragged I was every day, and I don't want to go back to that, but it's hard to kind of keep those boundaries when so much of the world is like, yeah, let's go back to normalcy.
Yeah, I hate it.
Me too.
I'm so tired all the time, and everyone wants to go outside.
Ugh,
and
the worst.
I was inside for 2 years.
Yep.
And that worked for me.
Yeah, agreed.
And now everyone's like, let's go to the thing. And to be fair, like, I also sometimes am like, okay, I have to get out of my house.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just, it's too much and it's too fast, and it feels like we've turned on a dime. And people are still pretending that this isn't a pandemic, but it is. And so, like, I'm walking around, I'm like, where's your fucking mask? Like, we're in a surge again. Like, what's happening? So I just have a lot of feelings. No one is surprised by this. But it's true, and it's my truth, and I must speak it.
And I love that for you.
I'm tired.
Agreed. I think that's the best way to sum it up. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's rough. But, similarly, in a similar vein, rather, I'm starting therapy again, so...
Incredible. Yes, yeah. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
In a really funny turn of events, I'm currently between healthcare because my healthcare at my last job ended at the end of April when I left, and I don't qualify for healthcare at my new job until the 1st. So I'm going a few weeks without James, and we're holding up well thus far, but I am fully prepared for a mental breakdown in like the next week or so. Yeah.
Well, we just got to get this done really fast then.
Yeah, let's get this in quick.
All right, this episode is going to be half an hour long. Go! Yeah, it has been many, many months since I've had a therapy appointment, and I was fine at the time, and I'm not now. Like, that's just where we're at.
Very fair.
My therapist and I my previous therapist, unfortunately, and I have deeply incompatible schedules, and that was sort of what led to me stopping going. When I started my new job, it became really clear that like her hours and my hours overlap, so there was no time where I was free,
right,
and not actively at work. And I tried doing a couple of like lunchtime therapy appointments when I was working from home, which was fine, but it is incredibly difficult to like be in work mode and then shift out of that, have potentially very emotional like therapy conversation and like
then right back into work.
Yeah, and then jump into like a meeting about like, you know, operations logistics or whatever. Yep. Like I was like, no, I'm still processing what the fuck Tanya just told me about myself. So it just kind of fell off my radar. And I think if you're coming directly from our previous episode, you'll know that I wasn't in a good place then. And that hasn't really changed. Oh. So I was like, it's time. So Tanya sent me some resources to find a new therapist. I'm reaching out to one. So I will have a consult on Monday and see how that goes. But happy Pride and happy therapy.
Gosh. So true. And those two should go hand in hand, everyone.
Yeah. Mental health in the queer community is not a joking matter.
No.
Even though we say it with laughter in our voices, but it's in order to stay upright.
It's to hide the pain.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Just kidding.
LOL.
Mostly.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Absolutely wild. I cannot believe we're basically halfway through this year.
Yep. That doesn't feel right.
No.
That feels like it should be illegal, but it's not. Like, time is moving too fast. Time out.
Yeah, but also summer is my least favorite part of the year, and fall is my favorite. So I'm like, this is kind of good. Like I can ride the speed train and then put on the brakes when we get to September.
Yeah.
But I don't control time, so I actually don't know how this newfangled theory of mine will work.
I am upset that you don't control time. I thought you did.
So sorry to burst that bubble here.
Very upsetting to me. You and I are similar on this. Summer is my least favorite time of year. The fall is the best time of year. Agreed. And everyone can fight me on it. We've only been conditioned to like summer because of summer vacation. Yeah. And it's the only time when we're free. But summer is Satan's butthole. I don't like it. I hate sweating. I hate sunburns. I hate being in a humid space. Like sleeping in the summer is the worst.
Awful.
It's never comfortable. I can't sleep under my like beautiful down comforter that I got for Christmas. Yep. Like I just have to go back to like a sheet.
There's not a lot of like holidays really. No. You have 4th of July, which watch some fireworks and eat some hot dogs. Great.
Yeah, we'll just set off fireworks for a month and a half and scare all of the animals in the neighborhood and annoy the shit out of your neighbors for a month and a half. And then
to celebrate a country that
we're not like, really happy with right now, or have not been happy with for a long time.
Yep.
And I can make hot dogs. That's fine. I don't have to have a day to make a hot dog. So yeah, there's just a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, with the summer.
Yeah. The only plus side is that I get to go to the beach with my mom.
Oh, I love this for you.
The only upside.
I love that.
Yeah, which I'll take. Yeah.
But speaking, I mean, I feel like we've been really like, you know, not negative, but we're on the lower end of things. Like, oh, you know, we've been better.
We're like, welcome back to season 4. Here's all of our tragic backstory.
Here, the world is shit.
Everything is terrible. Why are we here?
But not everything. We've got something very exciting coming up in a few weeks.
We do. As of the recording of this podcast, we are going back to AwesomeCon.
Yeah, we are.
Baby. Woohoo! So that's why we were like, we gotta record something.
There's gotta be content out for people.
Yeah, like we gotta do a recording so that way we have something new to promote at Comic-Con, and also so we come back so that like Mai doesn't cry.
It's
Hi,
true.
Mai.
Hi, Mai.
Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, Evelyn. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Emmy, and all these. Yeah, hi everybody that we love.
And hi, if you're listening to this post AwesomeCon 22.
Yeah, really. Hello to everybody. Given that, as a good reminder that there might be new people to our little podcast, Alan, who are we?
Well, we are the Fic List. We are a podcast that we call it a book club for fan fiction.
Yep.
We essentially pick tags beforehand, and then Erin will find a fic for me to read, and I will find one for her to read, and then we get together here at Fic List headquarters, and we talk about it, and we look at it critically for, you know, what it's attempting to do, what its like kind of value in the current fandom. I'm trying to think of a word, but I can't.
Landscape?
Yeah, that's
Discourse?
a good one. Yeah, all of that.
Any of that. How does it fit in with what's going on online?
Agreed. Yeah, thank you.
How does it speak to the fandom that it's in, fandom writ large? Does it succeed as a transformative work? do we like it?
Yep.
Do we, like, what is our personal take on it?
Yeah.
And, like, we try to come to it from not, like, a serious lens, because it's fan fiction.
Right.
And we love it, and there's a certain element of camp and silly and whatever, but not shitting on it and taking it seriously in the sense of, like, trying to say something substantive about anything that we read.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah. I'm Erin.
And I'm Alan.
And we're the Fic List.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at that. Nice little
Really?
button.
Well done. Well done, team. All right, we're done now, right?
Yeah, that was it.
That's the whole episode.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Tune in next time.
Yeah, tune in next month. Next year. We'll come back for
Yeah.
Christmas.
We're like the groundhog just poking its head out, seeing its shadow and be
Yeah.
like, all right, 6 more weeks.
Oh, yeah.
6 more months of a break.
Definitely. We should also be upfront. So, so other podcasts are like, we update every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And we've always tried to have a
Yeah.
schedule. But if you have been a longtime listener of our podcast, you know that that's never happened. Not once. Except for a brief moment in, like, early lockdown when I was
Yeah.
laid off and had time. And so we update about as regularly as fanfic authors, aka whenever the fuck we want. And we've just decided that that has to be okay.
Yeah,
That's
especially
gonna be
this
fine.
year. We're currently where we're at, I think we both love doing it, but
Yeah.
it's just, we don't get paid. We don't
Correct.
have any, like, extra help. So all of the, like, research for the episodes, all of
Yeah.
the pre-production, post-production, all the editing, all of that is done just through us and
Yeah.
our pockets of free time.
Yeah, which is very much like indie podcast life, and we know
Mhm.
that. But I think what we are trying to do is to manage expectations a little bit up front.
Yeah, and more importantly, I think also to, like, keep those boundaries for ourselves.
Yes.
Like, realize where our availability is and what we can feasibly do without trying to, like, add any more unnecessary stress.
Right, because this is always meant to be fun.
Exactly.
It's meant to be fun for us. It's meant to be fun for you. And hopefully we achieve at least one of those two things, because I'm having a good time.
Me
I have
too.
no idea how you guys are feeling, but
Yeah, feel free to let us know. Tweet at us.
yeah, please tweet at us. You could join us on the TikTok.
Erin has gone semi-viral on a TikTok and is riding that high.
Yeah, I posted a TikTok yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
And it currently, as of the recording of this podcast, has about 12,500 likes.
Mm-hmm.
And a whole bunch of comments. And I was like, ha 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 ha. I have understood the youths. I get it.
I've done it. I've broken through.
Yeah, I had an artistic vision and it worked out. All the other videos on the account have like 6 views, which is really funny.
Yep.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
I mean, it tracks. So you can join us on the Tiki-Taki, on the Tweety, which I'm upset about the Elon Musk thing, but we don't have time to unpack that. So.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms that this is not the platform for. I
No,
don't think.
we're going to, I think, stay on Twitter because it is useful for our brand. But yeah, that's not cool.
But we are keeping our ear to the ground in case things start to go south.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. We're on Instagram occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best way to reach us. I think we still have the Facebook page. I don't know for sure.
That relic?
Haven't checked in a while. If we do, it's dead as a doornail.
Yep.
So don't go there. We have a page on Fanlore, which still makes me
Oh my
happy.
gosh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
And we're going to be at AwesomeCon DC in like 2 weeks.
I can't believe you didn't mention our Tumblr.
Oh yeah, Tumblr. I'm so sorry. I'm an asshole. So we have a Tumblr page. Well, the reason I forgot about it is because I don't run it.
Yep.
It is run by the inimitable Caitlin.
Oh, Caitlin, we love you.
Yeah, Caitlin is the third member of the Fic List team who runs the Tumblr and also keeps us afloat and alive and functional. We went to Target yesterday so we could indulge in some rainbow capitalism. And she encouraged me to get both of the mugs that I wanted, as well as the shirt that I'm currently wearing that is a men's button-up shirt.
And they're all great.
Yeah, it was all good choices. So Caitlin runs the Tumblr.
Shout out to you, Caitlin.
Many shout outs to Caitlin. And we'll also be at the Fic List
AwesomeCon.
panel
Yeah.
at Comic-Con. So that's going to be Saturday, June 4th. I have no idea if this is going to go out before then or not. So,
I believe in us.
so whether or not that happens, we'll either see you there or wasn't that fun? Let's hedge our bets.
Oh, man.
And with that long intro completed,
Yeah.
what is the first tag of season 4?
Well, fittingly, it's first dates.
First date.
Yeah.
I do that cadence every tag.
time. Yep. And I love it.
It's tradition.
Tradition. Yep. Oh my God. Same page. Starting off great.
Yep. We are in sync.
Yep. And so I know normally for the first episode back, and because it's usually Pride Month, and we usually try to do some sort of like Pride related thing. So Erin, how do first dates kind of tie into like a Pride mentality?
So it kind of does and it kind of doesn't, which is fascinating because first date is sort of a vaguely universal concept, right? Like most people have been on a first date of some kind, but we were interested in having a conversation about first dates specifically in queer like scenarios and for queer people, and specifically like I am asexual and just I like queer personally, and Alan is gay.
I am.
And so the two of us have our own experiences with first dates that are interesting to talk about, and also first dates in general raise a lot of interesting questions for queer people in terms of like disclosure and like how do you date in the queer community? How is it different? Like how does queerness manifest sort of in a first date scenario? And we thought that would be kind of fun to talk about in a Pride scenario. And yeah, that was the thought process. There's nothing really else to talk about it. And also first date fic is fun.
I think that before we launch into the fix, and because it's the first one back, I think we should talk. Erin, tell us about a first date you've had.
I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I was thinking about what stories I could tell that wouldn't be so sad. So as an ace person, I have had several interesting first dates. I didn't start dating until well after college.
Wow.
My first date of all time was a high school scenario. It was not great. It was one of those things where like this guy who was actually into my friend asked me out to get more information on the friend.
Sorry.
It's fine. I got over it. He was a dick anyway. Like we went to the movies. It was fine. I was not devastated by it. It wasn't great for the self-esteem at the time.
Right.
But it is what it is. And then I didn't have any interest in dating really, like, because it just didn't occur to me that was a thing that I was supposed to do. I think I was like aware that like people were going on dates, and my whole friend group wasn't particularly like I had one pair of my friends were dating and they were in the friend group together, and that was kind of it. The rest of us were all just sort of like drama nerds who had our own shit going on. We like listened to a lot of They Might Be Giants.
I love this.
We had other stuff in our brains, and we were very nerdy and kind of we weren't in like the party scene or anything like that, so it was like not a thing. And then I went to women's college, and dating was everywhere, but I was too busy for that. It didn't occur to me. Like, I had vague crushes or whatever, and it just wasn't something that I did at all in college, despite opportunities. And so it was like, okay. And then out of college, I was like, maybe I should try this Tinder thing. Friends, that's not a good choice.
Man.
As an ace person, that was not a good choice. I originally set up my Tinder profile to be everybody, including presumably straight men.
Oof.
Mistake.
Yep, big mistake.
And I just had a lot of explaining to do, and I didn't love the multiple times that I've had to do this. There's nothing more annoying than someone being like, well, I've never dated an ace person before. Tell me all of the intricate details of your sexuality, and you're like, how do you know you're ace? Like, what is all that? Like, what is this? Friends, if you meet an ace person in the wild, don't do that. It's shitty and annoying.
Yeah.
My first sort of like date that happened sort of as an adult that I would say like have followed the cadence of a date was with this one guy who we went out for tacos. It was like perfectly fine. Like he was a really nice guy or whatever. And we like kind of hit it off. I was like, whatever. Again, maybe too ace for this. And we hung out, whatever, fine. And then as we were going back to my car, he went in for a kiss without warning me.
No.
Again, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I freaked out. And so that was my that's my first dating experience. He was very apologetic. He did not intend to freak me out.
Of course.
But then I had a small sexuality crisis where I had to call my best friend and be like, I'm broken. Like, why did this freak me out so much? I don't understand. And she was like, no, he should have asked you. That was a dick move.
Yeah.
And it started a whole spiral for me. So that was my first date experience. That's a sad story to end on.
You know what? I asked.
You did ask.
Yeah.
What was interesting is that later, about year and a half later, I started a relationship with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience was wildly different because it was quarantine.
Right.
So we started quote unquote dating by like going over to each other's apartments and
Just
like watching TV and hanging out. And that I think was so much better for me.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't this like constructed thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't this, first of all, he was lovely, and like there wasn't this expectation of anything. Like we were clearly like gravitating towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, and I was like, and so it just kind of like happened very naturally, and it wasn't like, all right, well, now we're at this dinner and I'm going to walk you home and now there's this script that I don't understand. It was like, oh no, this is just happening very naturally. It's also sort of funny, and to me personally, that a lot of my dating has been with cis men, despite the fact that I am not exclusively attracted to cis men.
Right.
And so that has also kind of been something that I think about a lot, where I'm like, perhaps this dynamic would be different if I had more dating history with queer women than what I've currently experienced. But yeah, that just hasn't happened for me.
Very fair.
So yeah, what about you?
So we should launch into these fics. We don't want to run too long.
No, I just like ripped my heart out in the marketplace and held it out for you, bleeding. And,
my God, you really paint a picture.
I did. Yep. And you're going to have to do the fucking same, Alan.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Very fair.
Right, you don't have to disclose anything you don't want to.
No, that's true. Yeah, also I'm currently single, so it's not like they've worked out. Yeah, but I also have had a really different experience. I feel like growing up in the age now where it's like Tinder and dating apps are like the go-to kind of way to meet someone. I find that those don't really work well unless you fit certain boxes.
Yep.
And I don't quite think I fit those boxes.
Yep.
So I've had some dates that, I always try to go in with like a sense of like, I understand that everyone's different, and like I understand that first dates are, it's kind of the same mentality as like an interview. Like there's going to be nerves, and like you can't make your entire decision based off just on the first date, which is not to say that if it's not going to work on the first date, then kudos to you. I'm rarely that certain about anything. I like to be more open-minded when I approach things, and like, I will often be like, okay, we'll have like 3 dates, and if by the third date I still don't feel like I'm interested in pursuing anything that I want. But oftentimes my first dates were always like with people that I chatted online with a lot. I did a lot of that, including one, which I think I told you about, but I don't think I talked on the podcast about, but that was like right before the pandemic happened, like literally February 2020. I was corresponding with someone I met on Hinge for like
Hinge
2 months or something like that, and we were sending like long emails, like it was Pride and Prejudice levels of like correspondence, and like we were getting deep, and like I thought had a really good connection, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like we were so similar too, which actually I think is what ultimately did us in. But we were so similar. He was Colombian. He got a master's in theater performance. So there was a lot of like overlap in our interests and just who we were as people. I really liked him. But when we met, he was also in Colombia for like the holidays, because we met around November, December, and so he didn't come back until. He didn't come back to the States until mid-January or something like that. So once we started actually like hanging out and seeing each other, it just felt like the spark had kind of gone out, which is a really fascinating thing. Because I don't know. I feel oftentimes that I really like talking and like being really deep about things like that. But I don't know if it ruins the allure or something. So I think that's like the most interesting like first date experience I've had, in which I went fully knowing like this person's like deepest fears and greatest dreams, and like all of these like really deep and personal things, and to have it not click was really devastating.
I think I think you are totally right to identify that online dating really only works for certain people and in certain circumstances, and it doesn't work for me either, because I feel like what I struggle with is sort of the bypassing of the getting to know you stage that happens if you meet someone in real life. Like, you get a certain amount of information just in IRL, like from interacting with somebody in the day-to-day, even if you're just sort of acquaintances or, you know, whatever in passing. And online dating skips over that and assumes a certain amount of familiarity with the person between you, or it assumes a level of intimacy and familiarity without having done the back work.
Right.
Like, I need more than that. Like, I need time to like suss out who you are and like what our vibe is and all that kind of stuff. And chatting online is great, but you don't get so much of that just information that is so important to compatibility.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, I think I also have what I've discovered, and what I did discover in my relationship was that I have an extremely slow and long timeline for physical intimacy. Like, it's one of those things where, like, I'm perfectly fine, like, not hugging you for the first, like, 4 months of us quote-unquote dating. And that's just, like, how I am as a person. I'm not a particular, like, it takes a while for me to build that sort of comfort with, like, physical affection. It takes much longer than Tinder or whatever, or Hinge would have you sort of believe. And everyone's timeline for that is different, regardless of your sexuality. And it doesn't, there's a lot of sort of assumptions on an app, I think, that it sort of rushes you into.
What apps have also really done is they've kind of normalized this, like, quick, like, fast pace kind of swiping. Like, just think of the act of swiping as, like, fast. It's just like boom, boom, boom. How can you make a judgment on someone based on so little and in such a small amount of time? And I've done it too, you know, like, there are times when you just start swiping and you're like, these are human beings. I'm, like, arbitrarily choosing whether or not I want to get to know. And it's there's just such an emphasis on, like, expediency to try and find the one, which has kind of become a blight, I think, because what's happening is that people are forgetting that there's more than just, like, the baseline interests that make up a compatible relationship. You know, there's a whole love language kind of thing, sense of humor, sensibilities, a whole other slew of things that you just can't get from a dating app. And then if we don't agree with someone, then we're like, all right, well, there's always someone else on the apps.
They're also just, I mean, at the end of the day, they are physically oriented, right? They are oriented around, are you attracted to the photos of me that you've seen? Are you, like, you're making a judgment maybe on, like, 2 lines of text at most. So you don't get a lot of personality from that. I mean, you get a certain amount, but also a lot of people have very similar bios because there's a certain type. I can speak specifically to queer women. We all have the same fucking bio. And it's totally fine, but you're not getting nuance from people. Really, you're making a judgment call in their face. And when you are me, not attracted to people based on physical, really, like, I have aesthetic interests, and certainly I have a physical type. But that's purely aesthetic. Like, that has nothing to do with people in real life. I mean, that's very much just like everybody, I think, can appreciate aesthetically.
Absolutely.
If they find somebody beautiful, but it's not necessarily the same as being like, oh, I'm interested in a relationship with you in addition to that.
Agreed.
So that, to me, that's where things, I just do not work out for dating apps, because I'm just like, I have no clue.
It's true. And I feel like we're really, like, shitting on them. I think maybe you and I have not had the best experiences, but I would also like to, like, you know, they have put some good into the world, and that, like, they connect people that might otherwise, you know, people who might have social anxiety and not want to go out and, like, meet people through other conventions, specifically, like, queer people, like, you know, where you can really only ever meet people at, like, gay bars.
Right. And how many of those are left? Exactly.
And so dating apps offer a very valuable kind of platform for people that, you know, are going to be interested in you, for, you know, those connections to happen.
As with all things, there's nuance and complexity.
Agreed.
And it cannot be reduced to either good or bad. It doesn't work for me personally, but I know people who have had wonderful experiences with dating apps and found long-term partners on dating apps.
Kudos for them.
Yeah, cool beans. It's just not my thing. And that doesn't mean I don't re-download the app when I'm profoundly lonely at 2 a.m, and then, like, and then, like, 3 days later I'm like, this is a bad idea, and delete it.
My favorite conversation I've had with James is that at some point I just got so frustrated with not going on dates and not meeting anyone. I was like, James, I'm just really frustrated. I'm like, I think I'm gonna die alone. He's like, no. And he's like, well, are you on the apps? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, but which ones? He's like, have you tried like OkCupid and stuff like that? I was like, James, here are the list of apps I am on. Here's how many dating profiles I have. And his eyes just got wider as I went down. Because I am familiar with the concept of casting as wide a net as possible.
Yeah. And there are queer-specific apps, but they're not as well supported as sort of the broad...
mainstream.
Yeah, the mainstream ones. And they are often fairly niche. I obviously have not been on Grindr. That's not for me.
That's a cesspool on its own.
Yeah, and like, again, serves a purpose. Yeah. It's not for me. I don't want to speak on it. There's an app called Her that is oriented around queer women, but like I didn't like the interface. It's like,
bummer.
It's not a good... I don't know. It's just
not like intuitive.
No, and like... The other thing that I've noticed a lot with that one is that there's a lot of orientation or focus on like micro labels.
Oh.
Which is fine, and that's all well and good. And if you are really secure as like I am a stone butch or I am, you know, whatever micro label suits you, that's totally fine. But there are so many of us who either don't know or oscillate between different like queer identities at any time. So having that sort of like hyper segmentation doesn't always help in that context.
Right. It can become more of a like cliquish thing or like isolating.
Yeah. And it just sort of limits your options where it's like in real life, if I met somebody, I wouldn't necessarily be like, so do you identify as like trans mask or like, you know, I wouldn't get into the nitty gritty of their identity. I just accept that this is a person. Right. Yeah. And this is who they are. And if your label comes up, great. But the apps sort of put it front and center. So you start putting people in boxes right away.
Devastating.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird.
Here's what I think we should do, Erin.
Yes.
We develop our own dating app.
No.
And it's based entirely on your like AO3 bookmarks.
Worst idea ever. But also best idea ever.
Right? You match based on similar
I'm going to have to delete a lot of bookmarks. Like a lot of them.
And then on your profile you have like a fic and you're like, you know, talk to me about this fic.
Yeah.
And it's like opener. We'll circle back.
This is only going to work if people get cool about a lot of stuff really quickly. No, I mean, yeah, but it's sort of, again, it's all complex and whatever. And
it's human relationships just in general have always been very like, there's such a spectrum to everything.
Everybody has to kind of go through it in their own way too, and at their own pace and with the people that they choose to let in or not. Yeah. You want to talk about the fan fictions that we sent each other?
Yeah, sure.
We're 36 minutes in.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I also, I kind of led us into that discussion because I knew that these are going to be shorter.
Yeah, and also these first episodes usually are a lot of us bantering.
Like reintroducing ourselves.
You know it's banter. The lads know it's banter. That is a hint for those of you who know what one of these fics is. Not subtle.
So then should I start with what you sent me, or do you want to start with what I sent you?
I think I should start because I think we should spend,
spend absolutely.
The time
Agreed.
Talking about what I sent you later.
Perfect.
So I took notes, Alan.
I'm so proud of you.
Real fucking notes.
So proud of you.
I'm proud too. Who knows if this is going to keep happening, but the fic you sent me, dear Alan, is called If at First You Don't Succeed by author Clotted Cream Fudge on AO3. It is a red, white, and royal blue fan fiction. And it is lovely. The summary is probably straight, Alex says, holding his hand out to Henry. But you're extremely hot, so like, well done. Well done, Henry says incredulously, the corner of his mouth quirking up into a smile as he takes Alex's hand in a firm handshake. Well done on being extremely hot? Hey man, Alex says easily, taking his hand away after the briefest of shakes. Take it or leave it. In that case, I shall update my profile, Henry says as he gets to his feet. Unsuccessful date with a heterosexual man who, nonetheless, had to admit I was extremely hot. End summary. It's an excerpt summary!
Yep, we love a classic.
The note on it, though, is kind of nice, which is, so this is Everwitch's fault. Thanks, Everwitch. And she knows it. Basically, what if the first date was kind of a nope from both parties, but then they got trapped somewhere together? Here it is. I like that.
That was a great summary.
A fantastic summary. So the other thing that we're going to try to do dear listeners,
Mm-hmm.
is actually summarize the fics and not recap them word for word the way that we have a tendency to do. And when I say we, I mean me.
Both of us.
I am particularly guilty of this. So here's my attempt at a fast summary.
Oh my God.
At the premise of this, Alex is set up on a date with Henry by Nora, who is scheming. Alex has sort of accidentally come out as bisexual while he was very drunk. He forgot about this. And now he has a date on his calendar. He goes on the date. It's lackluster. Alex still believes he is straight. Ha ha ha. And that Henry is boring. Also hilarious. They part ways. Presumably never to see each other again. But surprise! Nora has invited Henry to their Christmas cabin in the woods somewhere. Double surprise! Alex has to drive Henry because I guess his car is bigger or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then a blizzard sets in.
Yep.
And they are trapped in the cabin without Nora or the rest of the group.
Yeah, they didn't make it.
Just them. Things escalate, and I emphasize, quickly into sex. Like 0 to 60. Alex even says, we have gone from 0 to 60. And then I wrote, it is smutty. Smut. Right away. The rest of the gang arrives the next day when Alex and Henry are basking in the afterglow. Mm-hmm. They are boyfriends.
They are.
They are gross about it.
Yep.
Everyone celebrates.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Oh. Well done. I think that is the most expedient and efficient summary that has ever been on this show.
I agree.
Congratulations.
Perfect.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have some notes.
Oh, great. Let's hear them.
So that was my version of the summary, but there were some pieces of it that I actually think we should talk about.
Yeah, let's do it.
I love the tone.
Nice.
It was so like the book.
Yeah.
It really picked up on the energy of the two of them and like the sort of banter between the two of them that went back and forth. Alex being sort of a snarky little shit and Henry being a little bit more aloof and reserved to start, but also being able to like give as good as he gets. I thought that was really great. I wrote plot? What plot? But like fine. There's like some vague plot.
Yeah.
There's as much as a snowed-in fic ever gives you.
Agreed.
Yeah. I wish there had been either more to the relationship or less.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And here's why. They jumped from lackluster dates to boyfriends.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very quick. I think it almost would have been less weird to me if they had gone from lackluster date to we had sex.
Yep. And
but we're not labeling it like a full relationship.
Yeah, figure out what that means afterwards.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. They actually said like we started referring to each other as boyfriends and towards the end of the fic and were being like cuddly and cute. And maybe this is again my timeline being like much longer, but I felt like it just went really fast into like an intimacy that hadn't been like flushed out.
Yeah, and well, what I was gonna say is it feels almost like it then relies on your affection for their established relationship in the canon to drive home the ending.
Correct. But it wasn't based in the world of the book.
Correct.
It was a full AU. So because of that, I had disconnected it from their story in the book and expected either there to be more and more substance to their relationship building, or have it just fully be plot.
Agreed.
And like lean into the fact that they're just like fuck buddies now.
Yeah.
Or like Alex has his gay crisis and it's fine.
Yeah, and like that could have been a perfectly good place to end, where it's just like, yeah, we did, so we're gonna we're gonna see where it goes.
Right.
And that would have been fine.
Yeah. So that to me was a little like, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. It was like relying on something that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So that I was like, eh. And then what I wrote was, I am perhaps too ace for this. But I did like all of the delightful quips.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you that I think that's really the reason that I liked this a lot was the characters were so in character, like so all of the tone, like I could literally see this being like a novella or something.
Yes.
To the book.
Yeah, and I love that it wasn't just Alex and Henry who were right. Mm-hmm. It was Nora and like it was Pez and like everybody who showed up was also in character for themselves, which is awesome. Nora, and very early on when Alex is like, but I'm not bisexual, I was just drunk. Nora says, alcohol makes you honest, not bisexual.
That's a good one.
And Alex says, how about you stop being a meddling piece of shit for once? And Nora responds, tried that one time, hated it, 0 out of 10, would not provide a decent review on TripAdvisor. And I was like, this
Checks
author
out.
has read this book several times.
Agreed.
And it's so good. So I overall had a great time. I can't complain about this. It was very funny. It was an enjoyable time. I got there and I remember the moment. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it literally turns on a dime.
I'm also going to say a thing.
Let's do it.
I had always thought and been told that penetrative sex for men requires a lot more forethought than that.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Because I understand that this is fanfic world and fanfic rules apply, but I was like, I'm having a hard time divorcing myself from the reality that this takes. You cannot just like hop into that.
Yep.
And like maybe if it had been actually not penetrative sex, that might have also...
That also would have helped, yeah.
Yeah, for me. Because I think it's one thing to just sort of like fall into, I don't know. Like,
yeah, like the passion's built to a point where like you just need like contact with someone, but it doesn't necessarily culminate in that.
Right. And because I know more than I should about the logistics of this particular act, I was like, and then I decided to put it on a shelf and not worry about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, all of those points I also had, but I thought this was charming.
It was super charming.
I had a good time.
It was very sweet. Have you finished the book at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, a long time ago.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show, I think.
We have, but at the time you were like halfway through it.
Did we really? Mm-hmm. Oh,
I was just re-listening to this.
Really,
episode,
that's hilarious. Yes, I have finished it, and it did cause a very fascinating mental health spiral.
Yep,
all the way down, and it was expected.
Yeah,
but it was a hard one.
That's what you said when we were talking about it. You were like, I don't know if I can get through this because it's too close.
Yeah, and I was right.
You were right.
By the end of it, I was there. There was just so many elements that like hit too close to home, and not just the like. I think I talked about like I didn't want to do it because I was reading right as the pandemic was happening, and then the election was that year. There was just too many things that were happening.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and you put the book down.
Yeah, and I was like, it's.
I remember
it's too much.
Yeah,
but also like on the inside, I was like, I can't. I have a problem sometimes reading things that are like that I relate to too hard to.
Yes,
and you know, Latino from Texas finding love with a British royal. I was like, I think it's gonna harp on too many things that I like relate to me, and then would just make me feel like I'm unlovable because I don't have that.
Yep. Funnily enough, that's gonna come up when we discuss the fic I sent you.
Yep.
But there was an interesting take on a different fandom. I'm building up all this unnecessary suspense about queer fantasy.
Yeah. And
specifically queer romantic fantasy, and how, because most queer people have to take, and it's not exclusive to queer people, but we do not see ourselves represented in media. So there's always a certain amount of translation that's happening. Mm-hmm. There's a distance to something like a standard rom-com or whatever, where you're like, yeah, okay, but like, it's not me.
Yeah, that couldn't happen to me.
Right. Like, that's never going to happen to me anyway, because I am not these things. Like, I'm not whatever. But when it's queer, you're like, oh, that should be me.
Yeah.
But it's not.
You start to grapple with those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, which is something that happens for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but is a conversation that's being had right now, very specifically.
Yep.
And I think that book hits that too.
Yeah. For
that exact reason. Like,
and also, like, I guess, spoilies for the book, but also it's been out a while, so, but... Yeah. Spoilies. The book ends with Alex's mom winning, with the Democrats winning that particular election. Yeah. Which at the time, it's revisionist from what actually happened.
It was based on the 2016 election.
It's just, didn't go that way. It was fascinating to read that and to just feel all of the grief for all of the stuff that we just talked about with that, like, fantasy. Right. But also the, like, what we as a nation kind of lived through post 2016. It was it was too much, I think. Right.
And what's happening now?
Yeah.
Watching all these like anti-trans bills pass.
The world is burning. It's awful.
And knowing that like it's only a matter of time before other things come under fire, because they always go for the trans community first.
Yep.
And we have not, I think, as a community done enough to protect trans folks.
I agree.
And fight for them. Mm-hmm. And so that complacency to me is indicative of, you know, some shit coming down the line that we're just not prepared to fight.
No.
But it's hard to then sit in these you know, beautiful and uplifting stories, and then look around and be like, well, shit.
Yeah, what should have been escapism kind of becomes like, look what you don't have.
Right. And the sort of brain rot part of that is we'll never have.
We'll never have, yeah.
And
that's the part I don't even allow myself to think that, because I'm like, I can't do it, because then I spiral into a different, like, hopeless place.
Therapy. That's why we're in therapy. But yeah. Other than all of that.
Yeah, other than that aspect, lovely book. Highly recommend.
Lovely book, lovely fic.
Yeah.
Love the fandom for this. It seems to be very wholesome
as
far as I can tell.
I agree.
Not deep in it, so I don't want to lay claim to that.
And it also has, like, that their Alex and Henry's, like, relationship starts as, like, an enemies to friends to lovers. So it just lends itself so well to so much fanfic.
It's good. I mean, it's written like a fanfic in a lot of ways. Apparently there's a theory that it was a fanfic.
I've heard this.
Yeah, but I don't know that for sure. I mean, but there are a lot of authors now who have come up through fanfiction ranks.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and it's very clear in some ways that is a thing, because people are now more open to talking about it. It may have always been true, but people are using it as like a marketing thing now. So there's a whole like list of, you know, published authors who were like, oh yeah, that was a fanfic that I like slapped some new names on, which is dope. Yeah, good for you. It very much validates what we do in taking it seriously, because I'm like, see,
there's literary merit there.
Right, there's value to this story being told. We rate our fics.
We do.
On a completely arbitrary, baseless scale of how we're feeling that day.
Exactly.
From 1 to 5. We can get into decimals. We try not to get too deep into the woods. I would give this like a 3.8.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be right around where I put it actually as well.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful little like experience. Quick read. It's a short little one shot. If you love this like fandom and specifically because of the characters, I cannot recommend this enough. There's a whole bit in their first date where Alex, because he goes on this date knowing kind of that he's like, oh well, I'm straight, or telling himself he's straight, goes in and just talks about goes on a diatribe about gerrymandering for a half hour, and Henry's like, very Alex.
Yeah, Henry was like, I almost didn't want to see you again because of that.
Yeah, that god awful gerrymandering rant that you went on. And I was like, hey, it's valid.
It's valid. Yep.
We've been in DC too long.
Agreed.
Where I was like, it's perfectly reasonable to rant about gerrymandering for 45 minutes on a first date. What are you talking about? Yeah. No, I agree. And the sort of like interplay between the two of them just was so consistent throughout too. That was really fun. Like I loved, even as I was like struggling with the pacing of the relationship, I wasn't struggling with their characterization. I was like, if they were in this situation, this is probably how they would speak to each other. Yeah. And like it didn't feel out of character per se. It just was fast. Yeah.
Agreed.
So kudos to you, because that's actually hard. I think it's harder to stay in character.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the harder part of this. Yeah.
So
well done. Clotted cream fudge, is that what it is?
Yeah, clotted cream fudge.
Oh my god, good job, Alan.
Proud of you.
Thanks. All right, so I guess
I did it.
I'm so proud of you.
I was like, we gotta talk about how proud I am of myself.
I am so proud of you. I don't like the precedent you've now set for both of us, but like, great.
Yep. Okay. What did I send you, Elon?
You sent me a lovely little fic, an archive of our own. It's called Spend the Night. It's written by Obsidian Ix or Obsidia Nix.
Sure.
One of those.
One of them.
And it's a Heartstopper fanfic.
Who'd have thunk it? If you didn't guess, guess what my hyperfixation is.
And it's a good one, I would say. Yep. This is oh man. Okay. So the summary reads: there's still time for Charlie to say something, to offer to sleep on his own floor if Nick thinks the bed is too small, or if he's just uncomfortable by the idea, or if he's, should I get in first? Nick and Charlie share a bed for the first time. So very much excerpt summary again, but this time with a little actual like summary right at the bottom.
Yes.
And the note says, I simply cannot stop writing these two, and I think that that's fair.
Yep.
And this is literally such a it's less than 1,500 words.
Oh, yeah.
Very sweet fic about how Charlie and Nick used to sleep on each other's floors during sleepovers back when they were friends, but now that they're kind of something more, they're not quite sure about how that works, and they're kind of assuming that they're going to sleep in the same bed, but they're kind of really like nervous about it and don't want to actually say something. And and then Nick says, you know, should I get in first? And they're at Charlie's place, and Charlie has a smaller bed. And so then they have this whole moment where like, oh my God, Charlie's like, I just wasn't sure if you were going to want to. And then Nick says, of course I want to. Do you want to? And Charlie's like, yeah, very classic Nick and Charlie.
Yes.
And then it ends with Nick getting in bed, and then Charlie kind of popping himself over it, and then kind of experiencing that like first night together, just like that closeness. Very like cuddly, and then they fall asleep, and that's the end of the fic. So dear listeners, I have a question for you. Where in those 1,500 words would you say is a first date?
I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, because you blatantly ignored the tag.
I did. So do you want my attempt at a justification, or do you want my honest answer?
Oh, definitely the attempt first and then the honest answer.
So.
Yeah.
Because I was in a relationship in quarantine, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of my first dates were very domestic.
Sure.
And very much centered around, like, we're shifting from friend to more. But there's, like, this weird feeling, blah, blah, blah. And that, I think, is a very queer experience. Because sometimes you don't feel comfortable going and being on dates. And sometimes we live in the in-betweens and all this stuff. And so the first date could be the first time, like, that you spend the night at each other's house. Yeah,
and it's very valid that, you know, relationships happen at, like, different speeds, like, at different places, depending on what kind of prior relationship you have. Yeah, I can see that. What's the real reason, Erin?
I couldn't find a first date fic in this fandom, and I wanted one, and this was the closest thing that I could find to it, and I was like, I can BS an answer.
Amazing. As long as we both understand what is occurred here.
I fully disregarded the assignment because I couldn't find... I tried really hard first to find a first date fic for Our Flag Means Death. Which at the time, it has since exploded, but at the time did not have any. And I'm sure there are now, but it wouldn't have been in time for you to read it.
Agreed.
And so I went to Heartstopper instead, because then I got completely sideswiped by Heartstopper on Netflix, and have rewatched it about 50 times. And I was like, I gotta find a first date fic. And there just wasn't any. Like, it is a smaller number of fics overall.
Yeah, it's like the show only came out like 2 weeks ago, so
that hasn't stopped Our Flag Means Death. But no,
that's going on like 2 months.
Yeah, but also like that was exponential growth in a wild way. We should talk about it at a different episode.
Very fair.
But with Heartstopper, it's like hovering right around 600 fics right now in the tag. But for Nick and Charlie specifically, I haven't looked for the broader. And to be fair, their first date in the show is extremely cute.
Oh my God.
Very well done. And I don't know that anybody has like tried to like redo it.
Yeah, you can't. I don't. And that's something I thought of when you sent this. Yeah. So you sent. I knew what you were going to send, obviously, because you also gave me the heads up.
Yeah, I was like, you have to watch this so we can talk about it.
But I knew, because I read the webcomic where I was like, there's already a canon like first date in there, so it would be really hard to try and find something that is either canon divergent or like an alternate universe.
Right. And I didn't.
Yep.
I did not successfully do that. I just decided that I have Heartstopper brain rot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about it, so I would find the closest thing I could find.
Listen, Erin.
It had the word first in the summary.
We will give you a pass.
Thank you.
But we can't make this happen.
Says who?
Says me.
I'm the only one who ever remembers the rules of this podcast.
That's not true.
You said that 3 hours ago.
You don't have that on record.
I don't have it on record, but friends, he said it.
I don't know. That sounds really... Who are you going to believe? The person who fulfilled the assignment or the one who tried to bullshit?
Oh my God. So yeah, I fully copped to the fact that this was not a first date fic. Yeah. I just decided that I didn't care.
Yeah, and I would be giving you... I'm giving you shit, but only because I love you. And also, I'm so stoked we get to talk about this, because I was a fan of the comics, as I mentioned, and I read up to, I think, volume 2 of whatever's published. And I had the other 2 just lying around. I hadn't gotten to them. So I was familiar with the story, and I was excited when Netflix was going to make a series. So much so that one of my roommates gifted me a volume for Christmas, and I was like, oh, they're making a show of this when the trailer dropped. And he's like, we should watch this together. And I was like, okay, great, let's do it. And so I was holding out until Erin messages me and is like, hey, this is what I'm hyperfixating on. You need to watch this. I was like, God damn it.
Yep.
And so I watched it in the dead of night when he wasn't home, so he doesn't know. And I know he doesn't listen to this, but if you do, sorry. And so what that meant really was that I watched this starting at like 10 p.m. on
I did
a
the same thing.
Tuesday night, and then ended at 1:30, literally sobbing like into my pillow, like audible. I'm surprised someone didn't knock on my door to ask if I was okay.
Wellness check, yeah.
Yeah.
I did a very similar thing where I started it at about 10 o'clock on a work night and was like, I'll just watch a couple of episodes. Fool. What a fool I was. I did watch the whole thing. I ended at like 2 a.m. and I was just like, oh no. Oh no. Again, because I think similarly to you, I had this moment of like, oh, I see myself in so many of these characters.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it grabbed me in a way that like, things haven't grabbed me in a while. The last time I've had a hyperfixation of this ilk was The Magicians. It's been 0 days since we've mentioned The Magicians. But The Magicians was a very different beast. For a lot of reasons. Absolutely. Not the least of which that it like was not queer media. I am willing at this point to be like, this was never intended to be a queer thing. Heartstopper is unabashedly queer. And it comes from the queer community. And it's at the heart and soul of what it is. And that makes that really, really good and also really, really painful.
Yep.
I love that Alice Oseman is Aro Ace. I have some hometown pride about that, where I'm like, see, we can write good things. But I come back. I wrote about this on Twitter, so I'm recycling some content here. But it's true. I come back to Nick's coming out a lot.
God, yeah.
And what I appreciated about Nick's coming out journey, one, he didn't have the sort of like, I've known since I was 5 and I've always been, different, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I'm having a small crisis. I always knew Keira Knightley was cute, but what about Orlando Bloom? And now I'm in love with my friend, and what the fuck? Yep. And who am I? And what is this? And I don't understand. And no one around me is the same way. And that, I think, is the thing that really gets me about particularly Kit Connor's interpretation of
Brilliant.
It's so moving and it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
Because he keeps asking his friends, are you sure you're gay? How did you know? What is your experience? And no one has the same experience he does.
Right.
And holy shit, do I relate to that. Where I was like, oh, baby. The entire time I just kept being like, oh, baby. Like, I know. Like, I just want you to find one person who says, I know what it's like to feel that way. Yeah. And you just don't get it.
No.
Like, he just doesn't get it. And like, that is such a real and like visceral thing to go through. And it's what I went through. And like, I think so many of us go through that. I was just like, and then it was so like, it's so beautiful for him to like find solidarity anyway. Like, he finds so much love in the friend group, and like, they support him so much through his coming out journey, despite the fact that they all have different experiences than he does. And that there's, social pressure involved and all that kind of stuff that like, I cried a lot.
Oh, same. And I love also, like, every time he talked about it, he was always very forthright about like, I'm not ready to label anything. I don't know. I'm confused. And every one of like his friends were like, you don't have to know anything right now. You don't have to you never have to put a label on it. You don't have to come out if you don't want to. Like, it all is your journey. This is whenever you feel ready, that's good.
Yeah.
And like, including Charlie, who he's in a like secret relationship, and that's a lot of the Nick's guilt in the later half, at least, of the show, where he's like, I'm doing kind of the same thing as this other guy before was doing, where, I'm keeping you hidden, but that's not my intention. And Charlie's very upfront. He's like, yeah, no, I understand. This is like a different situation.
Yeah. I think the handling of the coming out journey, that is where you can really feel that this was created by queer people, because I think a lot of coming out journeys are, again, I think I'm stealing this from TikTok, but I think that a lot of coming out journeys are actually written for straight people in a lot of media, and this is written for queer people.
I agree.
And it is a very nuanced experience of coming out, and it's something that I think it's so important for youth to be told that you do not have to come out and you don't owe it to anybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of coming out stories like rightfully celebrate coming out as like, I'm living my truth and all this kind of stuff. But I think there's so much value in a story telling you that like, you can do this on your own time.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. You can't be a dick about it.
No.
What is not okay, like what Ben, the other guy, was an asshole, not because he was closeted, but because he didn't give a shit about Charlie's feelings.
Exactly.
And was, ultimately like
using him, basically.
Yeah, using him. And Nick is nothing like that. He's closeted, but it's like, it's because he's on his own journey.
Right.
And he never once treats Charlie, like, badly.
No. Oh my God.
Ever.
I've teared up just now, like, thinking back, like, that man,
He's so sweet. And that's the fantasy element of this, right? Because this is teenage boys.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think the real fantasy here is just the, like, level of communication that is effective between the two.
Between them, yeah.
Yeah, because they are so good at talking to each other.
Yeah.
They understand each other so well, and they're so honest, and they're so thoughtful. And every time I thought the show was going to go with the, like, they misunderstand each other or something happens, they don't.
Yeah, like, I kept waiting for that shoe to drop, which is, again, very, very familiar in a ton of other media, even queer media, where it's like, oh, yeah, they're going great, it's going great, it's going great. Oh, but boom, miscommunication, something happens, they fall apart, you know?
Yeah.
And then they come back together in, like, a sweeping grand gesture, and that's never the case here.
The drama is always external to the relationship. It's about having to navigate a homophobic environment, or, you know, trying to figure out, like, you know, navigating uncertainty or whatever, but it's never in question that Nick and Charlie love each other and care about each other and put each other first. Agreed. That is never the question. It's so good.
Yeah, I have really no words. I was so taken aback by, I thought that the show was going to be fine. I thought it was like, it's going to be like a fine adaptation of a work I really like. But no, the show is beautiful, and there was such, like, care taken with the adaptation, and, like, they bring in elements of the webcomic, like, in the graphics, like, there's cartoon leaves just flying by, and there's like little stars whenever, like, someone who likes it, another person is staring at them. Like, the way it tied in, that was so good.
It is so well done. I actually saw somebody post that they really appreciated that because they are autistic and have a hard time reading social cues.
Aww.
And having those little, like, visual indicators that, like, this is a special relationship was really helpful for them. And I was like, I love it.
That's so,
oh my God. Things I hadn't considered, but also make this even more special. Yeah, I loved that. And I read the comics after I saw the show because I had never heard of the comics before. But it is such a faithful adaptation.
It's so faithful. Yeah, literally there's just pages where the dialogue was taken from the comic. And it works so well. And I think partly because of that. So,
I hesitate to ask this question.
Yeah.
What would you rate the fic that I sent you? Irrespective of perhaps I'll take the L on this one. But I hope you don't penalize the fic for me having given it to you.
Of course
completely out of turn.
I think it was lovely, and I think also I found really funny when you were talking about kind of the tone, how well the fic that I sent you fit the tone of Red, White, and Royal Blue. I think you found one that also fits the tone of Heartstopper so well, which is that just innocent, sweet, like, lovely kind of energy. Like, it's literally just a fic of these two characters written very well, like, having these, like, doubts of, like, oh, I know I want to, but do you want to, and not quite knowing how to, like, articulate that, and so it ends up in this, like, kind of awkward, like, I guess I'll go in first, you know, and it's so sweet and perfect to them. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I can't fault this fic for you for where you've decided to slot it. I think I'm having an interesting dilemma wherein, like, I can't think of any fault that, like, is part of the fic. Like, my fault would be, like, oh, I want more. Sure. Like, I want, like, more of a narrative, but that's not what this fic was set out to do. This just wanted, like, a lovely little slice of life moment.
Definitely.
And I think that in that regard, it succeeded, and so it would be a 5. But my
eyes just got really big.
Technically. But
it's a technical 5.
Yeah, but on my scale, I would put it at, like, a 4.3. And, like, I enjoyed it myself.
Higher than I thought it was gonna be.
Because I'm not vindictive.
What?
And also to be completely transparent and fair, I adore this fandom, so I don't have a problem with it. If it had been, like, a different fandom that maybe I was not as into, I may have laid into you a little more. But I thought that it was a beautiful fic that set out to do something, and it did it perfectly.
I'm so sad y'all didn't get a real-time video of my face, because I was like, 3. He's gonna give it a 3 because I didn't fulfill the assignment.
No.
4.3. A technical 5. I am winning. I love winning. I especially love winning when I didn't do the assignment. Thank you, Alan.
Oh man, but of course there's no winning, Erin, because we're not keeping track of like scores and numbers like that.
Okay.
Rude.
Wow. But yeah, shout out to Kate Connor and Joe Locke for bringing those characters to life.
Oh, man.
Shout out to Alice Oseman for really transitioning from one medium to another with great gusto and applause. Shout out to the entire Netflix crew for allowing that story to be what it needed to be. Mm-hmm. Shout out to their intimacy coordinator.
Oh my God, yes.
They have an intimacy coordinator who I believe his name is David. And I did message him on Instagram and I was like, good job. And he was like, thanks. I was like, oh, didn't expect a response. Okay.
You want to come on the show?
Yeah. Like, hey, wait a minute. He was very nice. But I love that they used an intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a practice that I'm glad is gaining traction.
Yeah, it should be standard.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Agreed.
And I love that they had an LGBTQ community outreach liaison, according to their behind the scenes stuff. They had somebody from like the Stonewall organization who was on site talking about queer history and like why certain things were important and why other things would be bad. They really did the fucking work on this one.
Yeah.
And it shows, and like that's part of why it's like going so well, I think.
Yeah.
And now Netflix needs to fucking renew the show.
I know, and that's really the terrifying part. It's like, God, it's on Netflix.
Right. I think we're gonna get at least a season 2.
Oh, me too. Yeah, but season 3 is typically the kiss of death on Netflix,
I
right?
know. Yeah, and I think it would be homophobic if they didn't give it a season 2. But they're also promoting it heavily.
Yeah.
Like they understand that this is a marketing win for them, so they would be very silly to not
do a season 2. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I think for sure we'll get a season 2. Yeah. And then we'll see about season 3 after that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, I think Alice Oseman has said that they want to do 4 seasons total.
Oh, great.
But there comes a point where you just accept what you are given.
It's true.
The one I'm more worried about, and this is a whole tangent for another day, is Our Flag Means Death.
I can't believe they haven't renewed it. Yeah, it's been a long time.
I have theory that it is engagement clickbait. They are holding off on renewing it because renew Our Flag Means Death is valuable engagement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is shitty.
It is. It's bad practice.
So, HBO Max, remove your head from your ass.
Yep.
And renew it. Thank you. And Netflix, do not do the same thing. Because the queer community is not your engagement generator.
Yeah.
Like, stop it.
What if they're waiting till Pride?
Maybe. It's a little bit less of a hate crime.
Yeah.
A little bit less frustrating.
I don't doubt the HBO Max for sure angle of it. Like, I bet you that's probably what it is. And I would guess if we hear any news, it would be around Pride Month in like 2 weeks.
I bet that's probably when both of them, if they are going to get renewed, will get dropped.
Yeah.
Which is fine by me.
Yeah, as long as a renewal is official and comes, I don't care about the timing. Mm-hmm. But let it be soon. Yep, I agree. Amen. Forever and ever. Amen. And that's our episode, I think. Yeah, I agree. Wow. Well, we've already talked about all the ways that people can find us at the top of the episode. So if you're curious, just rewind about an hour. Loop it again. This episode and all of our episodes can be found on Spotify. Yep. Apple. Yep. Audible. Podbean. Podchaser. I think. SoundCloud. Yeah. Google. Anywhere that Erin could find to put an RSS feed. We are on that. There. It is helpful to us immensely if you rate and review this podcast on your platform of choice, particularly Apple, because those carry over to other platforms, which is not necessarily something that I realized when I started listening to podcasts or whatever. But Apple reviews very often carry over into other, like they pull them for context. So if you don't mind dropping a little, if you have 2 seconds of your day, we would love comment that, or whatever you want to drop onto that. All of the social medias, go watch that TikTok that I made that is going semi-viral because it brings me a lot of joy. And maybe we'll have other TikToks, who knows. Sure. What if people wanted to send us recommendations, Erin? You can do so via the Google form that is pinned to our Twitter page. There is also a Google Doc pinned to our Twitter page with all of the fics that we've read ever in perpetuity. So if you want to go back to season 1 and just read through all the stuff that we've talked about, you can.
I am an administrative coordinator.
Yes,
this is my job. And it worked out really great. So there are those two. If you're going to be in DC in a couple of weeks for AwesomeCon, come to our panel. We're doing a cosplay tournament of pairings.
Yep.
So we're going to have the audience vote on whether particular character ships are OTPs or no TPs. And it's going to be really stupid and really fun.
Can't wait.
So come in costume and hang out with us and meet us, and we'll hang out. It'll be great.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think that's it too. Thanks for coming back, for those of you who came back for season 4, and welcome if you've just joined us.
Yeah. Thanks for sticking it out with us. This was the fastest episode we've done in a while, so if you go back and listen through the rest of our discography, settle in.
Yep.
Yeah, it is not like this in other episodes. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.